Hi everyone, today I want to talk about testing SAS code. Testing is really important. If you're building a complex SAS project and you don't have tests for your jobs and macros and services, then the chances are, as your test grows in complexity and scope, that you will start to break some of this functionality that you've previously built. So writing tests and looking at the test coverage is really important. Now, this is just a quick video. If you want more details, you can go through the documentation here for SASjs Test. SASjs Test is the tool we'll be using for running the tests. And the project we'll use, once more, is the template jobs. So you can clone this from the github.com//SASjs template jobs. Just clone that, install the SASjs CLI, and you'll be ready to go. So inside this project, there's already some tests, some example tests. Tests are configured in the SASjs config. There's a test config, and this is where you specify where the tests, any additional test folders are. Now, your tests don't have to be in a separate folder. They can also live in the same folder as your jobs, macros, and services. You just need to name it as the job name.test.sas. That's it. If you've got a file called that, then it will be compiled as a test. In the init program, this is a piece of code that will go at the beginning of every test. The turn program will go at the end of every test. You can specify macro variables that are available in every test. And the teardown and setup programs, the test setup runs at the beginning of your test suite, and the test teardown runs at the end of your test suite. So you run the test setup program, all of your tests, and then the test teardown program can run. So these are optional, you don't have to set them. Now, I'm going to write a test. So I'm going to go to my macros folder. I've got a macro here that doesn't have a test. So I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to create a file called example.test.sas. Documentation. And my test. So what does this macro do? This creates a table called work.example. So my test, then, I'm probably going to, first of all, I'm going to run the macro and then do a test to see if that macro exists. So I'll maybe do mp assert, and then I'll just grab a example of this syntax. Here we go. So maybe I'll do, does the table have any records? So mfnobs work.example equal 1. Test description. And there's 3 macros here that aren't defined in the header. So it's important to define the macros in the header, else they won't get compiled. So to do that, we create a header called heading for SAS macros. And then I just list all of those macros. So example.sas, mp_assert.sas, and mfnobs.sas. And what will happen now is each of these macros will get compiled into the compiled version of this macro. So what next? I'll do a SASjs Compile. And that will compile all of the dependencies for all of the jobs and macros and services and tests. And I can see here my test coverage. So these are the files that don't have tests covering them. 100% of my macros are covered, and overall just 33%. Now, before making the next step, I need to connect my project with the Viya server. So to do that, I'm going to do SASjs auth, hit enter. And that will ask me first of all for a URL. So I'm going to use my Viya server URL. Paste that in. Client ID is hack client. Client secret is hack secret. I need to get the authorization code. Copy that. And I'm now authenticated. Now I can do a SASjs CBD, and that will compile all of my jobs and tests and macros, and create a build pack. This all exists in the temporary SASjs build folder. So here's my build JSON. This is what's getting deployed right now to the Viya server. There's 2 build files. There's a JSON file, which is used by SASjs deploy. There's also a SAS program, so if you don't have a client secret, you can just run this SAS program to build your project to your target app lock. So that's now deployed, and I can run SASjs Test. And that will actually execute the testflow.json. So these are the tests that I've got. Here's the setup and the teardown. You can see now that it's given me a URL. That's the test that's currently executing in Viya. That's state is running, it's completed, and now it's running the next one. So actually what I can also do, if there's any problem with any of the tests, because all of the tests are deployed as self-contained jobs in SAS Drive, I can just click the URL. Click that. Okay, that's not working on the hacker environment, but you can see it's working through the REST APIs. So normally you'd be able to just click that and it would open in the browser. There's some configuration issue with the hacker environment right now. So all of these jobs are running sequentially. And when it finishes running, I will get a series of files. So I get my results in JSON format, I can get them in CSV format, and XML, and even an LCOV showing me my coverage format. And I can see the results here in the terminal as well. So 3 of them passed and 1 failed. So if you'd like to use SASjs Test, like I said, the documentation is online. It's free to use. It works on Viya and also on SAS 9 and also on regular Foundation SAS.